want us to use?
Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, this is not a classroom. We're not going to have any tests. I'm assuming most of you are not students, so come up in front. No sitting at the back.
No backbencher.
And you've been co-opted. Come on up here. If you'd like to. We're just going to swing between the two of us, so jump in anytime you like. I'm serious. Up to you. You're cool.
If something comes up that I can. Switch on that one. Okay, good. There we go.
It's working now.
Yep, fine. It's a little bit weird. Well, in worst case scenario, I can still do it.
Doesn't work?
I grabbed it. First of all, it did.
That's yours.
Second of all, it doesn't have the. I can go grab it.
It's fine. We'll be fine.
I mean, if you can grab it in time, great.
Yeah.
If not, don't worry. We still have, what, a few minutes?
I will have somebody deliver it.
Okay, sounds good. If it's there, wonderful. If not, don't worry.
Yeah. This is better because quite.
Oh, we're just trying to figure out how to control slides. I'll let Karen tell me when to speak.
I'll just stand up there. We were just deciding who's standing where. I mean, when we came in here the other day, there was no chair. So it was. know what
I do
you
want
might
to
come.
see them.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna change my mind. Just take notes and like. But if I have something
Learn? I don't know
to
about
say,
that part.
Yeah.
a lot to learn. That's why I'm here. But if I have something to say, I'll just.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Except as nice as I love trying to with my eyes open.
Yeah, that I can't do.
So I sit in front of this glazed look. You can do that still.
Oh, I wouldn't bet on that.
Am I allowed to do this? Do it. Who allowed you to do it?
You brought your notebook. Well, at least that you probably won't throw. Like, you didn't bring.
No. Larry, I have a job for you. She's threatening to throw her shoes at me, so can you watch her, please? I need security. I need security. There you go.
You were not.
I can see Larry as the bouncer.
Wow.
Scary individual.
Wow. So you were cool. You were like that. I was never scared of the big thing because, my son, he didn't play football well, but, and then we had the moms with the, managing the football team and, the parties and stuff. And I'd walk in there and I'd say, boys, this is not the way we act. Yeah, I'm 5'4". Yeah. So it was like, he was tough. Yeah. And my daughter.
Did I give you your flash drive back?
Pardon?
Did I give you your flash
I
drive
believe
back?
you did.
Yeah. Are you?
Yes, you did. Awesome.
Okay.
Good to go.
All right. Thanks. Okay. Pay attention.
Shall we?
Do this. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for that.
At least one
Appreciate it.
person's open. That's a good thing. I think we'll give everyone a few more minutes as they're coming in.
It's filling up. All right, let's do this.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the session.
Good morning. Thank you.
Let me warn you all, caution you all. We're talking about scarcity, which means we either have to open our wallets or our minds. You choose which one. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Vista Skarbhari. I'm at the University of Texas at Arlington, and I'm a board member with CCA.
Hi, I'm Karen Vignari. I am currently serving as Vice President for Digital Transformation at the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities. And CCA had invited me, and I am a member of their advisory board, Equity and AI.
For those of you who don't know, Audrey, would you mind standing up?
Just as she's taking a drink.
That's Audrey is one of the co-chairs of the Equity and AI board. She's also the co-author of with a paper by the same title that actually started this conversation.
Yeah.
So when we look at higher ed in general, we hear a lot of complaints. The complaints range from the lack of value, the fact that it's not affordable, we don't do things efficiently. You name the person, student, parent, faculty member, administrator, regent, governor, it doesn't matter. There are complaints about what we can do, what we can't do, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And if you really look at it, the common complaints come down to some very specific ones. When you look at them from students and parents, that institutions of higher education are striving more and more to be highly selective, and therefore access is being highly restricted. Most of our institutions of higher education are too far away for students to truly be able to get to them or have the ability to go to the IHE that is of interest to them in the area in which they actually want to study. Tuition and fees are increasing at a rate that cannot be afforded. Degrees and experiences that students get at the IHEs may not fit with the needs of the workplace, or the employers in that region feel that these are great students, I'd love to hire them, but their experiences, their backgrounds, their qualifications do not match the qualifications that we as employers need at that point in time. There are other complaints that range from the fact that student services, whether you talk about advising or you talk about wellness or you talk about counseling or career services, are just not available, or if they're available, they're not available in time. And that we have structured ourselves for a time 2 centuries ago where we would start on the 15th of January and the 26th of August, and if you didn't meet those 2 dates, well, then you just lost out for an entire semester. That we will have a university that starts at 8 in the morning, maybe 7:30 if you're lucky, goes on till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 6 if you're lucky, and for the rest of the time, a student just does not have access to the knowledge they need at the point that they need it. There are common complaints that come from institutions as well. The fact that state resources and funding and federal funding has gone down significantly over the last 20 years, and therefore the services that are expected cannot be actually provided. That yes, everyone wants us to have a new campus or a new branch in every city, every town, but where is the money to actually fund all of that? Where are the experts that we need to talk about every single major that everyone wants us to have? Where is the resource? Where are the people with the expertise to give the students the 24/7, 365 holistic wraparound services that are needed? Everyone would love us to have a schedule that runs 365 days in the year and runs 24/7. How many of you, and I'm assuming most of you, are either faculty or administrators or the critical staff that make the university run? How many of you will come into work at 9 o'clock at night and stay till 4 in the morning? Raise your hands. What if I gave you a 10% increase in pay? Would you still do that? And yet, those are the needs that we have. We also have to be realistic that we are not businesses. However, we need to run similar to businesses in the fact that we need to be effective, we need to be efficient, and we need to be able to respond very rapidly and be flexible in terms of the changing needs.
And if that's not enough, we still have lots of issues, just going back to some of the things that Vistaps opened with on our tuition, still outpacing what students feel are the value and the public perception of value about tuition has continued to give rise to this tension that we have around what do you get out of an education right away. And the graphs are pretty telling, although APLU has been doing some work. That the tuition part is kind of slowing down a little bit. We still have issues for those of us that need room and board with us, and that is here. Like thinking about the whole package for students, has really outpaced what they feel they're getting immediately out of value. And that goes for parents too. And I know Vistap had on the earlier slide students and parents, but we should also be considering who are our students, right? The fact is that more students today are adult students, probably getting close to about 70% are 25 and older. And while some of them don't need the room and board, they still have to come up with tuition. And the way we finance education is actually really, really difficult when you're an adult who has a full-time job. It's harder for them to get access to various loans and things like that. So we still have all kinds of complaints, and then this makes us look like we're not paying attention to what is the bottom line for students, right? I think the other side of that is we've been telling ourselves for quite some time that we should be able to connect things, right? That we've gotten closer to when people should be able to get both the data that they need out of the SIS, whether it's for registration, whether it's for what course I need to register, whether it's for what will be in my course. And yet connectivity is still problematic. We haven't been able to give. There are some really interesting work being done about how we get better data and how we get with a lot of the things in AI on chatbots and stuff like that. But essentially, this evolution hasn't turned into efficiency, right? We are still struggling with how to get the right data to give personalized messages to students. And you can think about that as well, right? What should this mean? Like, we want, at this conference, we're about student success, right? And we want the student in the middle when we think about that, right? We need to be thinking about, are the services available online when they want them, along with that opportunity to be in person and have a human relationship as well, because we know those human relationships are critical to students' confidence, and they will often tell you that that critical relationship they had with faculty, right, or that critical relationship they had with someone who helped them in advising is something that was really meaningful and they walk away with, right? But it's the connection that we have to think about, not only in the connectivity, but giving us the data, right? Vista was talking about the institutional complaints. How are we going to get the data to know where we need to improve, right? And we're starting to do that work. We've been trying for about 15 years. And some of this is, it's been really difficult to link these systems together while really trying to think about the student in the center. Yeah, I already said this. So essentially, yeah, you want to go back to it? Just, yeah. Our network systems have not equaled operational efficiency, right? Like, most of them are networked, but we're not really able to do things either faster or better, right? So now we have to sort of think about what are the opportunities there.
Let's look at something that most of us who come from universities, all of us I'm expecting, hide from. We want to have advisors. We want to make sure that our students meet advisors, and I'm not talking about counselors, we'll get to that slightly later. We want to talk about advisors who help our students pick the right courses. When they're doing badly, they know what to do, when to do it. And let's be honest, at the ratios that we have, and I've just picked two universities. The first is UT Austin, the second is the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. My apologies to anyone from those two. These numbers are not only from your universities. Every university has something that is worse than or equal to these. So if you look at it, we want our students to be advised exactly when they need advising. can we honestly say that a student who needs advising gets that advice at the beginning of the semester? 2 weeks after the beginning of the semester? Halfway through the semester? So by the time we give them advice, it's too late for them to make the change. And we really can't blame our advising staff when we have ratios way above what the recommended ratio by some commissions is of 250 per advisor. Now you tell me, at 250 students per advisor, how many minutes do I get with every student? Or if I have a ratio of 900 or 1,000, do I even have time to do anything except, gee, you're taking 6 classes, click, next. This is the challenge that we have, that we would love to have more advisors, we'd love to have more support, but we don't have the resources or the time. We have a scarcity, if you will, in that to really respond. We talk about universities and we talk about colleges and we talk about institutions of higher education, whether it is 2-year or 4-year. And if you really look at it, and if you define it by the convenience of the learner, and data has shown whether it's online or it's in person, it's about 30 minutes, maybe 50 miles on the outside. If you're not within that zone of influence, you are probably not going to change your university, unless, of course, you are amongst the few who have the resources to go wherever you want and attend Stanford or MIT or Berkeley or some private university. But in general, for 90% of our population, your circle of looking at it is going to be about 30 minutes from where you live. Let's look at that map and try to figure out which areas are education deserts, meaning that they do not have an institution of higher education, 2-year or 4, within a 30-minute drive of a population center. And if you look at it, we're in Indianapolis. I'm sure some of you will be able to figure out on that map where you are. Look at the opportunities that we have for each of us if we're able to resolve this. When you look at it, you actually see these, and I'm not going to go over all this data, but it basically says that amongst our students, those who are the most disadvantaged, those who are the most under-resourced, are the ones who are actually affected by education deserts, just as they are by food deserts and by basic needs deserts the most.
So we can keep going, but this is really important to understand, even unrelated to the deserts, right? We still are not always bringing the right experiential and experts into the classroom, right? And a lot of that is how we've designed the classroom, right? We've gotten better in some of our online environments and places where we have digital libraries to bring in additional experts, but we still have a shortage of experts that bring the content into a meaningful opportunity for our students to understand how they would relate it to something, right? For a time, we were talking about the sciences of translational science, right? We need more experts, and they may not just be PhDs, right? Like they may be people who apply their learning to something that they work on. And so this idea of a scarcity of experts feels a little bit foreign, but what we're trying to really talk about is that we need to give our students more experts. And right now, the way the classrooms are set up, it's pretty hard to do that. And we also think about our classrooms right now sort of as one size fits all, right? Like there are a couple of universities and community colleges that really do try to work with students sort of individually, but they are the exception. More of us start a class. Some of us are starting classes every couple of weeks, but by and large, what the staff opened with is many of us have 2, 3, maybe 4 terms a year, right? So our pathway is you need to take this 6-week course, this 8-week course, this 15-week course. And that course will go at this pace, right? So the scarcity of pathways is there. We also have, and it's probably not fair to call it chaos, but it seems like a way of making it come alive. For students who are unaware of what they want to do, trying to figure out the pathway through the college is very, very difficult. And that goes back to the advising needs, certainly, but it also goes back to us making more data available as they're making decisions, right? And so this sort of thinking about all the problems we have, right, leads us to a point in time where how do we move forward, right? And we really need to think about how we move forward with that.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
No.
It depends on our...
Really positive people.
It actually depends on our perspective. And what better place to talk about perspective than at a CCA workshop and convening where we talk about policy, we talk about perspectives, and we talk about, say, practices. The fear that we all have, and let's be frank, most of us in this room either have the fear today or we had the fear a year ago, or we are still like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to us? What will artificial intelligence do to higher ed? Won't it increase cheating? Won't it decrease critical thinking? Won't it change the way that universities will have to move forward? Won't it completely destroy the student to faculty, student to administrator, student to staff relationship? Won't it decimate everything that we know about the university? Before I try to answer that question, let me ask you, for those of you in student affairs, how much time do you actually have to build a true relationship with your students? Raise your hand if you feel you have enough time. How many of you feel that there are learners outside that we're not able to engage with and that we've left them by the wayside because we don't have the ability to do that? If you feel that's not true, raise your hands. How many of you feel that our institutions as they exist today meet the needs of learners today rather than learners in the early 19th century? Raise your hands. So if you look at it, the concern should not be what AI or technology is going to do to us. The concern really should be, are we ready? Are we open to looking at different ways of acknowledging the problems that we have and the opportunities that might arise if we were to adapt technology? And I'm going to draw, let's say, AI into this larger bucket of technology. Technology could be a better way of getting our data together, being able to look at that data, being able to assess it, and be able to synthesize and then get the right questions from it. It could be technology that helps us reach a larger audience of students and learners that perhaps we would not have been able to reach were they in the class altogether. It may be a way of being able to give them experiences that they are not able to get. For example, we'd love all our students to go and visit an archaeological dig to see what really happens when they look at history. We'd love our students, especially those who are engineers, to be able to look at a machine and take it apart and put it together again. How many of them have done that over the last 20 years? So if we look at it, we have an opportunity today of taking AI and technology to re-envision the way we look at higher ed. Perhaps changing it in a way that we may not be comfortable with, but is better suited to meeting the needs of our learners everywhere. Our learners today are not 18 to 24. They come from all walks of life, at all times of their careers, They have responsibilities at home. They're running businesses. They're taking care of children. They're primary caregivers for their parents, and they're balancing things side by side. Does AI give us the opportunity to make a change? Or are we so concerned that it'll change the way we are comfortable with working that we are hiding from it? That brings us to the topic of the discussion today. I know a long, winded way to get up to here, but the intent is to make us understand that we're being held back. It's not just AI. We had the same fears when we talked about the printing press. That was going to be the end of thinking as we knew it when the Gutenberg press came about. We were going to end everything when we had a calculator because mathematical reasoning would go out of the window. We were going to end everything when we had the web. We're still alive. We're still doing well. Technology is advancing, and I think we are better off if we use it the right way. So the scarcity mindset that we have to look at is really in 4 or 5 different areas. Scarcity of access. How do we make sure that we provide access to more students and learners than we are able to provide today? How do we make sure that we have operational resources and optimize the way of our being able to address things and being able to be efficient? How do we address scarcity of location? How do we create, virtually if necessary, locations in every learner's home, rather than saying, learner, come to me, I will come to you? That changes the definition of institution. That changes our financial models. That changes everything, but which one is going to be better? How are we going to be able to say, if I don't have an expert today in this location, that I can find an expert who may be thousands of miles away on the opposite side of the ocean and bring that expert to the table of the learner who needs it at the point that she or he needs it, 2 o'clock in the morning? And how are we going to be able to do this in order to provide different pathways? A degree is a wonderful credential, but it's not the only credential that we have. And it's not the only way to get to a path of socioeconomic prosperity. We can provide all of that through educational institutions. We can provide steps towards that degree or credential. How do we do it in a modern, technologically adaptive way that supplements rather than replaces the tremendous expertise we have?
This staff has already talked about some of these, so I think we can really think about access in different ways, right? Like we often think about, and many of you come here to CCA because you have intentionality around what we call broad access. But we can also think about access through technology, right? So we're thinking of access in ways that are not just related to location, but we're also thinking about how the access to learning will help students get more personalized educations and experience more in that learning process. Part of this is an opportunity to rethink how we teach and how that will offer our students abilities to walk out of the classroom using skills that they're learning in the classroom, using that learning to solve the problems that we want them to solve and we want them to go forward in doing. So changing that mindset is what we're really trying to address with scarcity, right? Like we talked to our students for a really long time over the last decade about growth mindset. A scarcity mindset is also very much in place in higher ed. And we have to begin to take apart and think about it strategically, how we're going to change from the scarcity of access, the other scarcities that we're going to keep going with. You know, when we think about the operations, and I told you it still means that things are not really well connected earlier, right? Like AI-enabled operations, there is still going to need to be data work to get the use of AI. But once you get that data work and structure, then using the data could help us with a lot of enabled operations, right? We could think about things like how many of us fill out paperwork. I was just explaining to Vista, we have 8 projects, and I had to do my timesheet. And so every day I have to account for my time, right? And just that kind of paperwork. Like, why can't my calendar just tell Paycom exactly what I'm doing so I don't have to spend an hour doing it the other way, right? But in serious ones, right? Like our students with forms, right? And we had a debacle with the rollout of FAFSA, right? But we need to begin to think about ways to practice new enabled operations, right? And I think that's the kind of mindset we want you to open up to, not the one where I have to keep doing it this way, right? What are the things we can do better? We're doing, yeah.
We could look at holistic support, and I talked about this earlier. We have a student who's in emotional distress. We'd love to be able to get that student the support they need exactly when they need it, rather than saying, make an appointment and I'll be able to talk to you tomorrow. We have a student who needs assistance with housing, or a student who needs assistance with just a problem that they have in their lives. That problem is probably more the reason for our students stopping out or dropping out than their academic abilities. And yet, our ability to address those critical issues is not hindered by a desire not to do so, but because of the scarcity of resources that we have currently, under the mindsets that we have of how we're going to provide them that engagement. That is something that we could change. We could provide significant scaffolding. We could provide them opportunities. Just think about the opportunity that we have if we had a student who comes into my office or yours and says, I've been a physics student for the last 2 years, and I've suddenly realized that I don't want to be a physicist. I'm sure you've all heard that from your students. I don't want to be X because I suddenly realized that what my parents told me, what my neighbor told me, what I thought I read in the paper is not what I want to be, because I had no idea what a mechanical engineering student does, or what a nurse does, or a social worker does. I just thought that was a neat thing, or it was the way I was going to make a lot of money. And then suddenly 2 years in, I don't want to do that. And we say, okay, well, you've taken so many classes, let me give you a path where you can change your major and spend another year. And half of the time, let's be frank, we don't have all the data to make sure we're giving the student the right advice. What if we could use a system that integrated all that data that we had so that the student is given options? If you took option A, you'd still finish in 2 more years. If you took option B and you took an extra class over here, you'd be able to do something else. If you took option C, here's how it would affect your Pell Grant and your financial aid. Just think about that holistic support that we could give if we use technology the right way. Think about how we might be able to do it even in terms of the experiences we gave our students. What if we could say that you want to be a mechanical engineer, let me put you in a true immersive environment that allows you to see what a mechanical engineer does, or what a nurse does, so that you don't feel, oh my gosh, I have to deal with blood and people dying. I'm not sure I can do that. But today we have the opportunity and the ability to do that.
And thinking about a new vision where we could bring in a lot of what we need for our students to be successful in the classroom, where we could convert, not only the information that our faculty often transfer to our students, but how it's used, right? And that burden of integrating different kinds of experts and not expecting just one faculty member to do it all. Our expectations on people have gotten to the point where they're overwhelming for some of our own staff members. So we have to think of ways where we can help them do what they do well, right? And at the same time, think about how do we integrate into their support system for the benefit of our students, these kinds of experts, right? Like, we no longer have to have a classroom where you're all sitting there, right? We can have a classroom that integrates both a digital world, getting experts, and seeing how things might be done in a job that they might want to have, right? Like, so that kind of thinking about the way we could address both a new type of learning for our students and be new universities and community colleges is actually really exciting, right? Like, we could start thinking about different approaches to an integrated classroom that we haven't been able to do without this kind of technology. And that includes back to our curricula, right? Like, right now, we are really worried about, our curricula says you have to go through these 4 years and these classes, and our annual program review, which is usually a misnomer, right? Because it's usually only 3 to 6 years reviewed, is falling behind what are the needs of our workforce and what are the needs of our businesses. So thinking about how we bring more of that together and how we integrate faster is really important. And I think we have the tools where we can start bringing in, like, you've all heard of Burning Glass, and you've heard of all kinds of, here's the job postings, right? Like, we are not at the point where we can really begin to integrate for our students to say, this is what you learned in this class, and you can take it to this job, right? So we've really got to think about an AI-enabled curricula.
So let's take that one further. Let us assume that we actually used burning glass data.
Yeah.
Let us say that we used data that came from our chambers of commerce. Let us say that in a region we actually used data that came from the industry around us that told us these are the skills. And I'm talking about academic skills, not just working with their hands, which is also very important. But these are the skills they need, and we say, yep, that's great. Now it'll take me 2 years to ramp up to give you what you want. And they say, that's great, but in 2 years we'll have changed as well. And so our students are forever playing catch up. If we are honest with ourselves, about 30% of whatever we teach them is obsolete before we even teach them. We need to be able to use technology, use AI, to rapidly update things. Now, that does not mean letting AI write the curriculum for you in a way that is completely hallucinatory. It means doing things that assist the faculty member and putting together stuff so that the faculty member at the end is still the expert validating it, but the time that they would have taken to put it together is now significantly less. The ways in which experiences can be built becomes significantly less. The pathways that we can offer to our students so that they can have individualized paths to reach the same goal based on the experiences that they bring to, and I'm going to say classroom, but it's actually they bring to higher ed, because every student brings a different set of experiences. I'm sure a lot of you deal with adult working learners. I'm sure a lot of you deal with veterans who come and say, I want to get an education. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard, I know more than the faculty member who's teaching me. Why do you want me to attend that class? It's because we have a one-size-fits-all, and this is what you do. But think about if we could allow technology to help us to provide multiple paths to the same credential, to provide paths to credentials that do not exist today, but are needed, and therefore we could actually bring together the technology and the information and the knowledge and the expertise of our faculty to make that possible.
Now here's the, opposite side of that. There are still a lot of problems with AI, right? Like it is relatively new. Well, let's separate a few things, right? The LLM side of that, right? The large language models where the ChatGPT, the Claude, the Copilot, we've only seen the benefit of those in the last 2 years. And there's been a lot of machine learning, a lot of predictive analytics work being done for more than a couple of decades. But with the new LLM work, we have to understand it's only starting to get to the level of data and analysis that begins to help it correct itself, right? Like, it needs feedback. And that feedback has to be us, right? It most certainly has hallucinations. And Vistap did the graphics with DALL-E, and you can see hallucinations in the graphics when you get to it, spelling, all of those things, right? But those are things that we can help it get better with. What we have to remember is the tools are early stage, but we really have an opportunity, and CCA is doing great work with the Equity and AI Committee that we're trying to really bring front and center the needs around making sure bias is not continued, that we can actually spot it in the models, and that we don't continue these things that have happened in the past, because there's been a lack of data, a scarcity of data about a certain group of people who weren't included in the databases. So there are really realistic concerns we have to have about the products that we get out of AI right now. That doesn't mean that when you use them, they aren't getting better. They are truly getting better, and we really have to think about, you should always be testing your AI. You shouldn't just be trusting it, right? There are realistic concerns with it, but we need the speed of which it answers or gives me a project plan or tells me that I can match my strategic goals by using these 5 tools is absolutely amazing, and it meant saving 3 hours for me, right? We have to begin to think about, these are limited, but they still move faster than we do. And we need to figure out the approaches to do that. And I think with that, I went too far, sorry. We also think about the AI divide, right?
We have to keep in mind that we have right now 2 divides already. We have a literacy divide, which we've hidden from years and years we've hidden from it. COVID showed us that we have a technology divide. We thought that everyone used laptops. We thought everyone had access to broadband internet. And we found out that most of our students didn't. There is a concern, and it's a realistic concern, that as we go forward with AI, if we don't tackle it right now, that we will have a larger and larger gap between the haves and the have-nots. But we're at the point where we can actually address it. We can try to make sure that those resources are made available to institutions of higher education. We can make sure that we have access not just to the technology and the tools, but the training and the expertise to use those tools, the ability then to derive from those tools exactly what is needed for each of our institutions, which may be different, and the ability to have human agency and to be able to have traceability, so we're not using black boxes. We're actually putting into the AI tool what we actually need in order to give our students, our learners, if you will, socioeconomic mobility.
So we really want to end with the challenge that you all face, and the belief that we have is that higher ed, to serve our students, really needs additional tools. And we have to think of these as ways to do the things we haven't been able to do. And what that really means is we're using a set of tools that, just like we talked about, the printing press, the internet, et cetera, now we're going to have a new powerful set of tools that really can help us walk through this path of changing the lives and the social mobility for students that we've been wanting to do for a long time. And we know we've struggled with our failures, right? We have too many students that leave our system that have never gotten a degree. And the people in this room, like most of the people at our universities and colleges, have incredible intent in order to make a student's life different, but we've never had the kind of powerful tools that AI can give us over the next years. So we really want to leave you with like, yep, there's a lot of things we've got to be a little wary of, but there are a lot more things that could help us transform and affect more students' lives in a positive way. So we really are on the belief side that AI can change our scarcity mindset and can help us solve some of the problems that we've been tackling for too long in, quite frankly, an unsuccessful way. So let's do something and let's think about it. Let's do it strategically. Let's really begin to think about, instead of thinking about, this is so much new work for us, right? The goal here is to think very deeply about how many people we haven't been able to affect by giving them a good education. And I think it's powerful to think that we could enable more people to get an education.
So let me end with just a couple of questions and a comment. What is the pathway in general in life? Wonderful. I think I bought you dinner. Thank you very much. It's a way to get from point A to point B. How many of us use a GPS? How many of us implicitly believe that when it says change direction and take an option, we take it? Raise your hands. How many of you, when you click the button and it says, this is the way you have to go, you just go? Raise your hands. How many of you check on it and then say, yeah, it sounds about correct, we'll go? Raise your hands. Great. What you've been using all these years is AI. It's not new. The LLM is new because we were able to get the programming to a point where everybody could converse, if you will, with the agent or the platform. But theoretically, if we are able to do it for our own lives, what's stopping us from letting that same amount of effectiveness in getting from point A to point B made available to all learners everywhere with the same care that we take about ourselves? We check, we validate. If it doesn't sound correct, we say no. That's what our faculty, our staff, our administration are going to be doing. But AI could help us in ways that today we are not able to meet the needs of learners everywhere. So with that,
we're out of time. With that, we thank you for coming to this session, and we're happy to answer questions. We'll be around for the next day and a half, and we're happy to share contact information and the slide deck as well. So thank you all for being here.
thank you.
Oh, you want a picture?
Uh-oh.
We'll find out. Just let them go to the black screen.
Trying to get off the wrong side.
Yeah, I don't jump down places nowadays. Hi there. Thank you, dear.